Hey, we're live. It's the Kratom Gals. Welcome, everybody. This is a special edition. We're here because the American Kratom Association is about to start a Zoom call with the latest advocacy updates. But before we start, please note this live stream is presented solely for educational purposes. It is not intended as a substitute for the advice of a physician or other medical professional. Our community comes together to share our knowledge, stories, and experiences. So welcome, everyone. We have a special guest. Twinkle is here with us today. Hey, Twinkle.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Glad you could make it.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining
You're
us.
welcome.
I'm going to go pull up because apparently Mac and Laura Romney are already they're not officially starting, but they turned the Zoom on. So let me go bring it up. And, you know, Mac doesn't mess around. He always starts right on time. So
Yeah.
I'm going to bring this up for us. It's going to be a lot of great information tonight. Oh, and they got John Schinholzer.
Oh, I converted, man. Almost possible.
They're
There you
I
go.
feel
live.
like we should be able to talk to him. It's like kind of.
Time you talk, I never
Yeah.
hear you cuss, man. You're a good influence on me, Mac. I am not Lily Pure. I got to tell you, every once in a while gets the best of me. When I graduated from high school, I went to work in the steel mill to try to earn money to go to college, and I entered that steel mill thinking that I was a pretty wise to the world guy, having graduated from high school. I'm telling you, it was like a different language. And all English, but in the various forms of the way profanities could be combined together to express a viewpoint, where the profanity was the prevalent words used, and all of the adjectives, pronouns, and nouns were just sort of there. They're useless. They're useless. That's right.
That's funny.
On my first deployment, we were on ship, and I must have had 20 sailors around me. I was teaching them the English language they never heard before, man.
It's funny.
Understood. Laura, I read your testimony. That's a good testimony you give.
Oh, thanks. The one I sent to them, the email. Yeah, I don't think I didn't copy Mac on it, but I had sent a letter to all of the legislators or all of the parish police jury.
Yeah, they said they knew they were.
Okay.
They were just early.
I really asked them I pleaded with them to please.
I think I could. Did that just mute? Did it just mute them?
Yeah.
Okay, I just saw where I can mute. It's still coming through my headphones, but for those that are here live, so they're getting ready to officially start. They turned their Zoom on, I guess, by accident a few minutes early. But tonight with the Kratom Gals, we're going to watch this webinar, and then afterwards, stick around. We'll do some Q&A. We'll talk about it, and this is recorded. I know this is late for people on the East Coast, so if it's too late for you, just know this is recorded. You can watch the replay later. I'm going to bring the audio back up. I feel like we're a fly on the wall. They know they're live, but they're just shooting the breeze.
It's kind of like you're hanging out with them.
I asked him that specifically before I went. I'm like, I got to get the name right. So make sure you verify that before you say, because I hope I got it right.
Hey, Venus.
Yeah.
So we've hit the bewitching hour here, so let's go ahead and get started. Welcome to everyone who's joined us. My name is Mac Haddo with the American Kratom Association, and joining me on this panel this evening, where we're going to be talking about some of the local bans that are popping up in the States, is Laura Romney, who's has been from 2019, when we first started talking about Kratom Consumer Protection Acts, one of the greatest advocates with a powerful personal story about her journey in finding Kratom and how it has helped improve the quality of her life. And John Schinholzer, who is the newly appointed director of our Veterans for Safe Kratom, and he's going to become a much more visible player in building coalitions here. And obviously, the veterans community is an important group for us because there's so many that have successfully been able to find Kratom as an alternative to some of the more powerfully addictive and potentially deadly products that are used in acute and chronic pain management. So we welcome them, and I'm going to give them some time in just a minute, but I wanted to make a few bullet points about things that are going on. And just one little anecdote, I went to the Supply Side West meeting, which is a very large gathering, a trade show that was held this particular time in Las Vegas last week. And my purpose in going there was that they had a panel discussion, which included Carol Welsh, who's the director of the Office of Dietary Supplements at the FDA. And they were talking about the DSHEA Act, the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act. And there's a controversy that continues to percolate, where there are people that want to open up DSHEA in order to tune it up, to amend it. And then, of course, there's the great fear that in doing so, some of the bad actors will come in and try to add amendments to it that would make the effort probably worse than the cure that we were trying to get to fix some of the deficiencies in the DSHEA Act. So I wanted to hear what some of these experts and what their current thinking was, in particular the FDA's perspective. But I was sitting in the Dulles airport in the concourse waiting for my plane, and the gentleman sat down next to me. I looked over, and it was FDA Commissioner Califf. And so I introduced myself, and I said, you and I are pen pals, but you're not a very good one because you never answer my letters that I send to you. And of course, he looked at me and says, well, who are you? And so I explained who I was. And of course, that got his attention. And I explained to him that we have been trying to work and reach out to the FDA in order to establish a dialogue that would accomplish what Commissioner Califf claims he wants to do with the FDA, which is to establish a regulatory framework for the proper regulation of kratom products. Now, the FDA has taken the position that they need expanded regulatory powers in order to do that. And of course, everyone in Washington understands what that means. And we have enough of problems with existing regulations that it would be problematic to try to give them additional authorities. But I explained to him that there might be areas that we could agree and perhaps find areas of compromise without compromising our principles that we could live with if he were willing to sit down. And I told him that I knew who our chief proponent for banning kratom was at the FDA. And he quizzically looked at me and said, well, how do you know that? And so I explained the evolution of our journey here and how I discovered who that individual is, who is a top advisor to the commissioner in the commissioner's suite and has been the most vociferous anti-kratom advocate at the agency. And once I convinced him that it wasn't a guess, he said, well, then you know that you do have a tough road to hoe. But he was pleasant about it. And I explained to him that I really thought it would be beneficial for us to set up a discussion, a time to have a discussion. He invited me to give him his card, and he said he would get back to me. So there was serendipity to be sitting there at Dulles Airport, where I spend a lot of time waiting for planes, and to run into Commissioner Califf kind of, on his own, just sitting there. I have no idea where he was headed and or what he was up to there, but it was an interesting discussion. But at the Supply Side West group, it was an interesting discussion about the DSHEA, because some of the leading dietary supplement groups that were represented on the panel, it was one of those panels that probably you couldn't have gotten more milquetoast if you wanted to. No one wanted to take an affirmative position. No one wanted to say, well, this is the way it is, with the exception of Dan Fabricant, who is the head of the Natural Products Association, and who until about 2 years ago was equally as vociferous an advocate for anti-kratom policy as the FDA was. But the one thing about Dr. Fabricant is that he has enough of an open mind that he recognizes that the effort on science, combined with the attempts to modify public policy that allows for the appropriate regulatory framework to protect consumers, is persuasive. And he is today both a convert to the value that kratom offers to people, and he is actually an advocate for us in talking about how kratom should be available when it's properly manufactured and formulated correctly and labeled appropriately, so that consumers can have the advantage of it. So just sort of an interesting background on those two incidents, and one of which is a continually evolving asset that we have within the mainstream dietary supplement industry that really we rely upon in order to mainstream kratom as a recognized dietary supplement product. A couple of things to bring you up to date on what we're confronting with the FDA that do have implications at the state levels. The state of Ohio, through the Department of Agriculture, has acted in 2 specific retail outlets to tell them that they are not permitted to sell kratom in any form but powder, meaning that and they cite specifically the FDA and kratom website, where the FDA claims inappropriately that kratom is not legal for sale. And then they list all of the categories that are properly covered by the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act, but for which they abuse their discretion and recharacterize them as being having the authority to ban those products, which they do not if they are appropriately labeled under the conditions of use. So the Department of Agriculture has taken the very pro-FDA line, and I would say a terribly narrow view of it. And they say literally that you can sell kratom powder. You can't sell a kratom liquid. You can't sell a kratom capsule or pill or a beverage. But you can sell kratom powder if it is put into a transparent or a bag, a package that does not have any labeling for instructions of use, because to do so would affirm that that kratom product is designed and intended for human consumption. And their argument is you can just sell kratom without any labeling. This is insanity. It goes back to the situation that we run into. Everyone will remember what we saw down in Florida, where you had space dust, which was sold in an enhanced Ziploc bag, and it had scrawled on the front of it with a marker that says Sharpie marker that says space dust, and not any indication of what the appropriate serving size is or any directions for use or any warnings. And that, of course, led to a court case appropriately for the lack of marketing information that led to the death of that individual. To this day, we don't know whether that space dust product was actually dangerous, what adulterants may have been in it, or whether it actually was the cause of the death, because no one tested the product, because the vendors didn't show up for trial, and it was a directed judgment from the judge. But that, of course, takes us back to that kind of environment as opposed to what we should have in the state of Ohio. And it's interesting that the Department of Agriculture took these steps, because we've been working with them through our legislative sponsors in Ohio with the Kratom Consumer Protection Act for the past year and a half to negotiate with them what kinds of parameters they wanted to draw around the product requirements for kratom in the state of Ohio. So we're back to a more contentious environment. There has been lawyers engaged by the two retail vendors, and they are now collaborating with one another, working with the Department of Agriculture. And we are, through our legislative sponsors, are working with the department as well to try to identify if there's a resolution to this problem. And certainly it creates more of an impetus for the state to take action to enact the Kratom Consumer Protection Act, to take this mini FDA, which is the Ohio Department of Agriculture, and get them back into the box. We're also seeing some actions in other areas. In the state of Utah, some of you may have heard, is that they have cracked down on some products that are being marketed in the state of Utah that the department doesn't believe are compliant with the Kratom Consumer Protection Act. They have removed 7-OH products that are 7-OH dominant products in the marketplace. We agree with that decision, because those products should not be marketed as kratom. And that was the impetus for the American Kratom Association to enter into an agreement with the emerging trade association for 7-OH products to convince them that they should not market their products and call them kratom, which they have agreed to do. And we're waiting to see if they're actually going to follow that agreement and have the integrity that was required of them as we go forward. But Utah stepped in and barred delisted, they call it, those 7-OH products. And they had previously stopped a number of 7-OH products from even being registered for sale in the state of Utah. We also see that they have delisted their Kava Kratom products on the premise that the products are per se adulterated until and if the companies can provide the required documentation for that product formulation to enter the marketplace under the conditions of use, which means labeling. So that's something that the department is currently evaluating. I was at a meeting last Friday in Salt Lake City with the department on a completely unrelated issue, but this issue came up where they described that they are now engaged in discussions with the Kava Kratom manufacturers, and they're going to accept their petition for a review based on the science and the evidence and data that's available for the safety of that product. One interesting point about all of this that overarches everything is the federal standard, which says that if you want to introduce a dietary supplement into the marketplace, and this is assuming that you have qualified under the FDA, which of course the FDA is in the way not only of Kratom, but many other product formulations. But if you meet that criteria, you then prior to market entry have to have a basis, reasonable basis for the safety of your product under the labeling conditions called the conditions of use. This has been the federal statutory framework for market entry. It's important that everyone understand that your product has to have that evidence and data, either in the form of a peer-reviewed published article documenting the safety of the product, or with clinical animal or human trials that document specifically your product being safe or that product formulation being safe before you enter the marketplace. And that, of course, is a very tough standard that I suspect they're maybe giving these companies some difficulty because they can't now hustle to find some justification for these products. We're going to be having a panel discussion at our upcoming AK Leadership Summit, which will be held in Rhode Island next week after the election. And there'll be a panel with a number of scientists who are going to be discussing this very issue about kava kratom. We'll also have a panel discussing the 7-hydroxymetrogenine products. To clarify 7-OH, the American Kratom Association position on 7-OH products is that these products that are predominantly 7-OH cannot be called kratom. It is an important distinction that has to be made. And as Dr. McCurdy pointed out at our recent congressional briefing on September 20th that we had up on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., he said you cannot allow these products to continue to be marketed as a kratom product. We think we've taken the first important step to make sure that we can eliminate that. But most critically, we now signal clearly to forensics toxicologist firms that they've got to evaluate these alkaloids and metabolites that are present in a tox screen and just don't call anything that is kratom, kratom. They now have to say not all kratom is the same, and they should be evaluating it. That will be equally true as regulators look at registration for products and adverse event reports, including at the FDA. And it will be equally true for lawyers in product liability cases to have to make that distinction. We think that's important. Now, there's some that argue, as many of you know, that you should just eliminate these products and force them into the new drug approval process. There is no question that the science that has been conducted on 7-hydroxymetrogenine demonstrates that it has a binding affinity to the mu-opioid receptors, which is dramatically stronger than metrogenine, which is a partial agonist. That means that when it binds like an opioid to the mu-opioid receptors, goes to your euphoric high center, goes to your respiratory system, those are serious problems. And it is incumbent upon, and the burden falls directly on 7-OH manufacturers to not call their products kratom and to document the safety of the basis for safety for them to enter the marketplace. Prior to doing so, that standard applies to everyone, but they've got to be able to do that based on the conditions of use. So it is possible that you could have a product that if it weren't limited in the conditions of use, could kill you. Perfect example of this is caffeine. Caffeine is the most widely used psychoactive drug in the world. A teaspoon and a half of purified concentrated caffeine will kill you quickly. And so the accepted use of caffeine is not that it can't kill you. It has to be in a dosage form, and it has to be labeled properly and formulated properly so that it's safe under the conditions of use. So we can't wave a wand because we don't like a product and we don't like 7-OH products and say, well, we're just going to arbitrarily ban them because we don't like them. We have to provide the same pathway to the market, require them to meet it. That is true for kratom products. Same is true for all of these other product formulations, CBD and kratom, kava and kratom. And we're seeing a couple of other innovative kind of things. And even the isolation of kratom alkaloids and somehow getting rid of metrogenine and other alkaloids is also equally of concern. So that's the situation that we're in. So with that background, I want to just take a minute, and then I'm going to turn it over to Laura and John. The challenge that we've got in these local government entities is that they are heavily influenced by a number of factors. There is a very vocal and very large addiction recovery center group that has refined their message, or their anti-kratom message. You have a very sophisticated law enforcement information distribution network where they are telling their local law enforcement officials that kratom is dangerous. And there's also a mythology that's developing where they say, excuse me, where they say kids are being hurt by kratom. There is no data, none, that supports that conclusion, but that's what they're claiming. And then you've got obviously the normal detractors that are active in this marketplace, the kratom danger awareness people, who are weaponizing their grief in order to try to go after kratom. They should be partners with us, because what we want is appropriate regulations. Bans are not justified, and they know it. Even though they are grieving their loved ones, there are other circumstances. And as the FDA says, not me, as the FDA and NIDA say, the deaths that are attributable only to kratom are rare if they exist at all. So there needs to be a good examination in each of these cases as to what the true cause of death is, but regulations will improve this safety risk dramatically, because we do know that there are metrogenine products that are adulterated with fentanyl, with other dangerous drugs. And when that happens, then the risk of death for an individual is strong. I've told the story before, as I sat in the hearing several years ago in the state of Ohio, where the Senate committee was looking at the Kratom Consumer Protection Act. And immediately after our hearing, and they were moving quickly, I was ushering people out of the hearing room. The next bill was a bill that would decriminalize drug paraphernalia in the form of fentanyl test strips. And there was a woman that had stepped to the podium and started talking, and she said, enough for, obviously she saw me still in the room. She said, "I want to tell the committee that my son died of a kratom overdose." And of course that got my attention. I stopped, and she turned and looked at me, and she turned back to the committee, and she said, "My son was a student at American University in Washington, D.C. He and his friends would use kratom in order to stay up because it increased their focus, stay up late in order to study." She said one night he was working on an all-nighter, studying for a cramming for a test that was coming up. He walked out on the street and bought a kratom product, and it killed him. She said, but it was laced with fentanyl. And her crusade was to get fentanyl test strips decriminalized as drug paraphernalia. That's the story that we need to be aware of. And as much as we feel great empathy for people that suffer these kinds of losses, it is incumbent upon all of us to find the truth. And we see that these medical examiners and coroners are too often playing too fast, too loose with the facts, associating just if kratom is present on the word of a loved one, or that they only test for kratom when they send out the tox screen to a forensic toxicology lab because it's cheaper to just look for one thing rather than looking for the truth. And we think that's important. And I cannot imagine why, except for their weaponization argument, why the kratom danger awareness people wouldn't work with us in order to impose these kinds of regulations until and if the science were to justify a ban, which we know is not going to come, but they could hope for it. And certainly there's a sufficient amount of research that's ongoing right now that if it were justified, the FDA would have taken that case back to the DEA or to the World Health Organization in order to get them to re-up their examination of requests for or recommendations for scheduling. That has not happened. And in fact, the science, as we learn more and it evolves more, our understanding more, we know that the kratom does not meet the criteria that's required for scheduling under the Federal Controlled Substances Act or the states where it mirrors those 8 factors going forward. They can find some advocate that is in the form of a physician or in a addiction recovery center or a law enforcement officer that will try to make this case, but it's not a valid case. It's not legitimate. So our challenge right now is to rearm ourselves to get ready for this battle that is going to expand in the states, because the FDA has recognized They can't win at the federal level because the science doesn't justify it. They're having a difficult time winning at the state level despite their best efforts, recognizing that the science won't prevail. So they want to dupe local governments using these tools that I've identified in the form of well-meaning, perhaps well-intentioned, some cases self-serving financially in terms of the Addiction Recovery Center people, but they're out there trying to expand what they're doing in demonizing Kratom. So we've got to match that. I'll tell you an interesting thing that I knew at the time, had forgotten, but was brought up at the Supply Side West seminar or panel on the DSHEA Act. They talked about how advocates were to protect dietary supplements. Because remember, back in 1994, the FDA was on their full-throated crusade against dietary supplements. They were saying that dietary supplements were poorly formulated, they were unsafe, that they were adulterated, they were killing people. They were making that case, and they wanted all dietary supplements banned. And dietary supplement retailers around the country literally put drapes, black drapes, over all of their dietary supplement products. So when a customer came in, they said to the customer, you can't buy a dietary supplement until you sign up to send a message to the Congress that they have to pass the DSHEA Act. And they actually had phones there, where this is back in 1994, so the technology wasn't as refined or as good as it is today. They had phones there with phone numbers that they could call their congressmen or their senators and tell it. And the result was you had a passage of the DSHEA Act despite the strong objections of the FDA. We need to replicate that. So as we think about how to motivate local officials and motivate local advocates, including the retailers, we need to start thinking creatively about those kinds of techniques that worked effectively in order to get the attention, because otherwise it's going to be gone and the customers won't realize it. The vendors thought, well, I didn't know how to stop it. There are effective ways that we can communicate the pro-Kratom message to tell the truth that will go for those local officials. We're going to do two things at the American Kratom Association that we want to discuss tonight. One is we are going to provide to all of you a set of bullet point talking points on the issues that we hear most often by these local officials. Either they get it through Googling or they've gotten it through referrals of information from these anti-Kratom advocates. But we're going to give you the information that will help you answer the question about why the Mayo Clinic demonizes Kratom, why there are people that claim that why the DEA lists it as a drug of concern, why the FDA adverse event system doesn't justify a ban. And so we've got a series of these talking point papers that we'll distribute that will be in 1 or 2 pages, and you can selectively use them both in giving testimony or in writing to these council members or city or parish members or police juries, whatever the designation of that local government is. We want to give you some tools that will fight back in order to explain what the policy issues are and why this is a decision that impacts so many people that they're just not taking into consideration as much as they should be. The second thing we're going to do is to recruit Laura and John to be more strong participants and more active participants at these local levels. And Laura started that battle. She's been to a couple of these meetings. So I'm going to turn it over to her to kind of just give her impression, talk about the kinds of things that she observed as she's gone to these meetings and any recommendations she might have. And then we'll wrap it up with John.
Great.
And then we'll do Q&As after that. So Laura, I'll turn it over to you.
Great. Yeah, so I'm really grateful to get to speak tonight, and it was exciting to get to go down to Louisiana to, I hope I say this right, Ouachita Parish, and to be able to testify and, explain, exactly our position. I was very fortunate because they were actually not going to allow me to speak due to the fact that they were pushing the vote back until actually November 4th. But I was able to speak at the very end, which was great. A couple of things that I did notice. One thing in particular, this particular parish, they had a very active group of like C-store and smoke shop owners that were super involved. I actually met with them before the actual hearing, and it was really helpful because they had banded together and wanted to support this, you know, to be able to inform them that this ban should not go through, this sales ban, because not only did it, you know, like they were telling me, it doesn't just affect them financially, but they have a lot of customers that rely on it for things like pain and mental health and addiction and such. And so they didn't want to see that, you know, go by the wayside because of this particular ban. And so they were there. I was super impressed because, again, they showed up. That was the biggest thing. And, you know, they knew they wouldn't be actually speaking, but a group of probably 10 of them sat through the whole meeting and was there, and their presence was huge. I know that they are banding together now to try to find more people to be able to testify at the hearing on the 4th. And so it's incredibly important as a community. If you live anywhere by these, you know, these parishes or counties that are, you know, are talking about these local bans, you're there to support them and actually show up. The bodies make a difference, even if you don't end up actually, you know, speaking. And again, I want to, you know, emphasize it's not hard. Don't be afraid to either Zoom in your testimony if that's even allowed, or to actually stand up. It's these testimonies, the most simple, basic ones, that really, really affect these county commissioners. It makes the issue real to them versus just, you know, scientific things that we can push at them. They have a face and a name where they're like, wow, this person, you know, has really been impacted by this. And so it's super important that we are all first in this. And I'll say my piece too about the support as far as, you know, the community goes through the Kratom community. We need more support from all of you. I know there's been petitions going around like change.org and such. I know that has been circulated. And interestingly enough, you know, there's just not that many people have signed those petitions. We need more. We need more people to phone in, to call the legislators, to write emails, because that's where the message really comes through. And, you know, they know it's important, because if no one shows up to these hearings, or no one, you know, signs these petitions, then, you know, to them, they said, well, it's a non-issue. And so, you know, the more numbers we, you know, can experience, just like what Mac just said, you know, with that DSHEA Act, where these vendors got into the situation where they actually draped the product and said, you're not getting this until you support this. I mean, I would hope that any vendors out there that are listening tonight, or those that have connections with vendors, or actually go, you know, that purchase their Kratom, that they will, you know, convince their vendors to really support the American Kratom Association and all the efforts that are there to try to, you know, help these local bands. Because the problem is, as you can tell, these little bands make a big difference. You may think this little tiny town in Louisiana doesn't mean a lot. Well, the reality of it is, it's a drop in the bucket, yes, on the big picture, but it's a slippery slope. You start getting county after county or parish banning these, it sets precedents. And it's just like, you know, the bullies in the playground, you know, it's peer pressure. And all of a sudden, the counties on the outside are looking in, and they're saying, hey, wait, that county over there banned it. I don't want to be the odd one out. And there are too many of these county commissioners and parishioners and things that are not taking the time to do the study. And so testimonies are absolutely critical. So please, I implore you to do what you need to do to support these efforts and show up.
Lord, thank you, and amen to all of that. It's absolutely the experience that you've had is exactly what we need to kind of translate into greater advocacy, more people involved, standing up and motivating people. We get complacent sometimes, thinking, you know, everything's going to be fine, and it's not going to be fine if we don't fight back. So, John, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, I'm down here in Wachita right now, and we got a meeting planned for tomorrow with vendors and consumers, you know, whoever shows up. But one of the plays we're going to do is we're going to cover different topics, you know, during our testifying period, so we don't duplicate each other, because we don't want to put these guys to sleep. But, you know, I've been thinking, you know, other substances like alcohol, nicotine, sugar, they all have double-digit addiction profile. Kratom's only got a 3% addiction profile. But we do not let, like, the 15% of the wine drinkers are terrible alcoholics. You know, they're the ones that you see on Skid Row not doing well. we don't let those people shape policies or demonize the wine industry, so we cannot let these people, these addicts in these treatment centers dictate the narrative on kratom. It's bad for business for everybody. So I think that's an area we need to, and that's perfect segue for me. That's a great area for me to talk to about, which I'm going to do. Also, I think we need to talk more about GMP is the FDA dietary regulations for these products. And if you focus on those products, that eliminates a lot of the bad actors and the adulterated products. So I think we can have the high ground on that. But, all politics are local. We have to shake out the local people who know these supervisors, these jurors, these people on these councils. And we just simply got to get to them and talk some sense into them. But I'm also going to, I think I'll try it tomorrow, explain to the jurors how they're being hoodwinked by these federal agencies, because if this stuff was so bad, they could have banned it in 2016 and they couldn't because they didn't have the evidence and they don't have it today. So I think that's some more high ground stuff. So I think we're on the right track. We just got to do a better job rallying the locals, get to these policymakers in advance, or we got to come right behind these agencies that are spreading this misinformation. So, and like I always say, the people who are in opposition are typically the pharma folks, the methadone, Suboxone, the MAT doctors. I think kratom has taken a bite out of the addiction business, no question about it, and the pharmacy business. And then I noticed on the news reports down here in this community, I've seen two media reports. One was the local news where they had a pharmacist discussing, how bad kratom is. But in the news, he said it should be regulated at minimum, which is exactly what AKA wants. So we got the solution for his concern. And the sheriff down here, his concern was that these people were making a lot of money in selling this stuff, but there was no crime associated with it, no court cases, no jail time, no overdoses were spoken of. And I'm thinking, what the hell? You're in retail business. You're in business to make money, but I don't think the markup's that great. But I think that they're throwing darts right now. So I think with some assertive testifying in some of these local committees, we can turn the tide on this. But another thing about community organizing, once you get started, you got to grow and go. You can't go backwards because you lose your momentum. And when I was out, and I want to say Tinley Park, Illinois, I believe it was, at that local one we spoke at, those I don't know what they would call councilmen, but they said, look, come back here. We're going to ban it for now. It's going to go into effect in July, but come back with some regulations we can live with. So they were even asking to come back with that. And, I'd already spoken, so I can't speak 2 and 3 times, but I would have said, just mirror the AKA KCPA, that's what you really want. So I think we're in good position, but we've got to rally more local people at the local level who know they're policymakers. Relationships are important at that level. So that's the direction I think we need to go. And as for the veterans, I'm assuming we're getting more and more veterans signing up at the AKA veterans. That because of the fear of not only stigmatized and demonized, but these veterans are scared of, I suspect, losing benefits somewhere along the line. So we got to do some work there and explain what the laws are centered around that. So, I'm excited to be in these local areas. I'm excited to talk to the local folks and try to help guide them and shape, a system on how we can start winning some of these local bands instead of, getting our lunch handed to us.
No, this is great. And you're right there in Ouachita. So it's just a question of delivering here. So we're going to hold you accountable, John.
Well, I'm going to do my best. I'll go down fighting. You bet your butt on that. So
there you go.
Well, and then I'll add one thing. The arguments he brought up are very much similar in all these counties. I mean, they're doing the same thing. I hear it over and over. They're like, well, number one, they don't even know what it is. I'll be honest. They didn't. When I was there, they're like, well, so tell us, how do we, what do you do? Do you vape it? I'm like, you don't even know what it is. Yeah. And so luckily I had some with me and I was able to show them. So they truly are uneducated. And most of them too, I've heard this numerous times. They're also saying, well, it's really kind of funny, but I never even heard of Kratom before until this ban bill kind of popped up, and wow, it must be bad. I mean, I haven't really heard about it, but that everybody's telling me it's bad. And so I guess it probably is.
And look who they're taking look who they're getting information from.
Right.
Federal agencies that think they know better, who have a proven track record of screwing up along the way. I do believe the FDA in part, they look really bad with the OxyContin epidemic. And they looked terrible when they were trying to roll out HIV medication, for those that know that history. So here we are with Kratom, and it's like they're overcompensating, but they just don't have the science to back it up. They're in ideology land. And, once you know the science, and if you want to stick to ideology, that makes you a pretty arrogant individual. But, I don't want to call these people arrogant, but, that's what we're fighting.
Yeah, completely true. Well, thanks to both of you. I think this is a great start to expanding our resources and our voices in these local communities, and I welcome it. It's gotten to the point where there are too many places to be, and I welcome these added resources and your commitment to join us. So thank you. In terms of what we're going to do next, there are 3 channels where people have communicated, and we'll get to each one of them. First is I've had some private text, which I'll address here in a second, asking me questions that people think are sensitive. And then secondly, we have the Q&A that's on this board. We'll get to all those. First, we're going to go to those that want to speak. And I see that the Samsung SMX20 wants to speak, has raised their hand, which you can do. So I'm going to turn it over to them to go ahead and speak. You're muted right now. So whoever Samsung SMX2 whatever is, you need to speak up, unmute yourself.
Mac, it's Glenn. I just want to say good luck with what you're doing.
Oh, thank you very much. We appreciate it very, very much, the support of everyone in the community. Because
I had to change my
well,
idea.
All right. Well, great. Thanks so much. So let's go to let me address I got 2 private text messages. One is asking me if I can comment on what's going on with the Global Kratom Coalition and their lawsuit against the American Kratom Association and me personally. I can generally. First off, it is my opinion that this lawsuit was filed in retaliation for the effort by the American Kratom Association to defeat the California legislation that was promoted by the Global Kratom Coalition and J.W. Ross, who is the chairman of the Global Kratom Coalition and also the founder of Botanic Tonics that markets the feel-free product. And our view of that legislation was that it was over-regulatory, anti-competitive. It would have put most small to mid-sized kratom manufacturers out of business. It would have stifled innovation in new products. It would have driven the price up dramatically for California consumers. And it was just a terrible bill. And that bill died because we were able to shine a bright light using an outside expert on the fiscal impact of the regulatory scheme that was embedded into that bill. The Global Kratom Coalition and J.W. Ross do not believe in the federal model for dietary supplements in terms of it being a dietary supplement self-regulation model, which means that the standards are set. The dietary supplement companies have to meet them. And because these products do not kill you, then they're allowed to enter the marketplace under the standards that are set. And then the regulatory agency acts like a referee. When they get a report of either a improper product on the marketplace or a adverse event, they go and address it. And it works. The alternative is it would cost at the federal level multiple billions of dollars in order to regulate as drugs are regulated, and it simply doesn't work. And the same is true in a mini scale at the state level. And just as an example, in the state of Utah, it costs $260 per product to be registered, $100 for a retail establishment to sell kratom products, and it costs between $75 and $750 for the manufacturer, depending on the size of their operation. Under AB 2365 in California, which was the Global Kratom Coalition's bill, the first year registration would be upwards of $121,000 per product. And it then for the manufacturer, And in the second year, after they had washed out the upfront cost with all of the experts and the consultants they had to hire, establishing facilities, hiring new people, it would have been around $71,000 per manufacturer. That's why it wipes out all of the small to mid-sized manufacturers and even some of the large ones, because the costs are just exorbitant. And so we fought it, and we were successful because of the merit of the issue. J.W. Ross is mad about that. He also had a situation arise in the state of Utah, which he had castigated as one of the poor performing self-regulatory models. Nothing was ever getting done, and his product was delisted. Now, it wasn't just his product. There were 9 or 10 kava kratom products were delisted by the Department of Agriculture in Utah. They had also delisted 7-OH products. They had blocked many products from even getting on the marketplace. And so that system was working. Now, it still needs the referee where you come in and say, hey, I've identified a product that is non-compliant. I've identified a product that hasn't been registered yet. That has to improve. And I met with the Department of Agriculture out there in Utah, and they are working on doing exactly that. It's going to mean a modest escalation in the registration fees. It might go up to $300 per product. It's not going to go to $121,000 or $81,000. This was nuts. Now we're getting the target of the anger, in my opinion, of J.W. Ross. And it's one man, one product, one organization. He just wants to dominate this industry. So he sued us. Now, on the merit of the case, that I can't discuss in any great detail other than to say he's wrong. In each of the areas where he claims money was diverted by the AKA, we spent more money than he contributed for the specific project that he directed that money to. And I'm certain in the end, we're going to prevail. The Global Kratom Coalition, it's a free country. They can be a trade organization. They can't camouflage or masquerade themselves as a consumer advocacy organization, despite their best efforts. They've tried to do that, but they are dominated, funded, and run by one guy, one product, one company, and that's it. And that's the fact of the matter. They have recruited a couple of companies to join in because, I would be tempted to do that too if I didn't understand what was going on with their objectives here. So we're going to fight this out. We're going to see. It is terribly destructive. It is distracting. It's a waste of resources and time. It is a fight internally that hurts everyone, and we simply want to dispense with it as much as possible. But it is a fight that was started by J.W. Ross, not by us. I know he doesn't like what we've done, but that's life. And we can have policy disagreements, and we can find ways to resolve those kinds of things. But this kind of warfare, this punitive action where you make accusations that are unfounded, is just absurd. And we've simply got to figure out a way to get above and beyond this along the way. If it's not possible, then we're going to have to go forward in another direction. But right now, that's what we're trying to do. So that's the first issue that was raised. The second thing, the issue that someone just texted me on, is what we expect will be changes in the FY25 Kratom Consumer Protection Act. There will be changes that we will promote in our legislation. They will include very strict language about what constitutes a 7-hydroxymetrogene product as opposed to a kratom product. We are specifically going to have language in our bill that says you cannot sell a 7-hydroxymetrogene product which has a greater than 2% of the overall fraction of the plant as a kratom product. Then they're going to have to be on the market however they can find their way to get there, justifying their presence by meeting the standards that are required for all dietary supplements. And if they cannot, then they simply won't make it onto the marketplace. We support the science driving this policy, and I am aware of the fact that many of these researchers have reported to the FDA their findings and concerns about 7-hydroxymetrogene products. And I think that the FDA hopefully will take appropriate action in order to require 7-OH products to meet that standard. I have spoken with many of the 7-OH manufacturers. I think there is an interest by some of them to actually do it right, but they've got to get the science down. And so that's the challenge going forward. So that's the status with this. So before we go to the Q&A section, let me go. Craig Katz has raised his hand. So Craig, I'm going to allow you to talk here. You have the floor. You have to unmute yourself.
Okay, I think I'm unmuted, right?
You are.
Okay, so I am the Government Relations and Compliance Manager for CBD Kratom. So first of all, thank you guys for putting this on. First of all, John, I met at Tinley Park right after I took the job with CBD Kratom, and I thought your speaking there was very helpful, despite the fact that the Board of Trustees had no intentions of actually listening to any information that was provided to them. Mac, I'm curious what your position is with regarding HART and their 7-OH efforts.
So thank you for the question, Craig. HART is the organization, I'm going to call them a trade organization for the 7-OH manufacturers. I was surprised to learn that they have a fairly narrow membership right now, because 7-Ohms reached out to me after I complained on a podcast that they were using illegal therapeutic claims on their products, which is not permissible under the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. And they immediately got to me, and we had a very interesting conversation. They understand the differences of opinion that we have, but on HART, we have an agreement in place with them that says that they will not market their products as Kratom products. There probably will be a purge period by which they sell out their products that are currently marketed and labeled as Kratom products, super Kratom alkaloids, whatever that terminology is that they're using. So the proof in the pudding will be after we've gone in the next 60 days to see how they're behaving. And we're going to evaluate whether that agreement is something that they have integrity in following as we go forward. It specifically says they can't mark them as a Kratom product, and that we will limit them to the 2% level. And all of these products are above that 2%, that they would have to justify their presence on the marketplace, not as a Kratom product. So a state regulator is going to have to look at 7-OH, just as the FDA is going to have to look at it and make a determination whether they let those products be sold in that state.
Thank you.
So the jury's out, Craig. We're not sure that it's a relationship that will work. But one thing I've learned in my entire career, you never get anywhere if you just want to be the bull in the china shop and demand that you do it my way or the highway. Having collaboration and discussions with other groups, and in this case, the HART group, was productive in our opinion. It is not universally accepted within the Kratom community. I know that the J.W. Ross hates it, but that's life too. And he wants to say that I'm the devil himself for even talking to HART. I've never found it to be productive to dig yourself a hole and cover yourself with it and expect that people are going to listen to you. It may prove that HART is not going to live up to the agreement, in which case we'll abandon it and we'll make it public when we do so, but we're going to give them a fair shot and a chance to do it. So thanks for raising that issue.
Thank you.
So let's go to the questions that have been raised in the Q&A chat, and I know there are a couple of interesting ones. John asked what's going on in New Jersey in September, and recalled correctly that I had said that I was meeting with the sponsor, Representative Keene, about this issue. Representative Keene and I did meet. He took this legislation to ban Kratom because he had a constituent who believes that the family member died of Kratom. The autopsy report is typical of what we see in this situation, where it is not clear at all that this was Kratom, and it is more likely that there were many other substances, or some other substances, I should say, that may have been implicated in this particular case. Representative Keene is interested in getting this right. He is not going to pursue his legislation until we're able to look at the Kratom Consumer Protection Act. There might be some provisions that he would like to see added to it. So we are right now in the collaborative stage, but there's not going to be any movement on this legislation from him until we've had that discussion. And I would expect in 2025, we're going to be able to have an outcome of what those discussions look like. But he was a fabulous listener. He didn't come to the table with, sometimes you get these legislators and they know it all. He did not claim to do that. He wanted to learn about it, seemed open to it. We sent him more information probably than he can absorb, but he welcomed it and said he was going to dig into it. That meeting took place about 2.5 weeks ago. So we're going to continue to follow up with him. We have a lobbyist in New Jersey that is monitoring this and working with Representative Keene. But it was a great discussion, and I think we moved the needle with that. So that's the story with that going forward. Marvin asked if it would be helpful to have vendors with sandwich boards outside of gas stations currently to remove them. Sunshine Organics has these signs all over the place here in the state of Washington. State of Washington has a proposed ban on Kratom that was filed by a party that yet to be determined who that was, although I do know it was an out-of-state party that filed a petition to have Kratom regulated and banned. And we are monitoring that situation. It is a long process for that to happen. We have filed preliminary inquiries to determine who the petitioner was, because we think we're entitled to know that. We have a fabulous group of legislators in the state of Washington who are working to get this legislation right. And I think that they will act before the Board of Pharmacy can get to this, even if they were to seriously move forward on it. But we're working on that. But to the question about should these boards be removed, marketing is a very interesting thing. And you know, obviously, if I had the ability to say this is the way the rules ought to be, I would probably not have signs outside of gas stations or convenience stores advertising Kratom. But it's a free country and people can do what they want. I've been looking into and have had some productive discussions so far about how we could have QR codes put into the retail establishments where when someone walks in, doesn't know much about Kratom or anything and ask, what about Kratom? They scan that QR code and they immediately see an informational video on Kratom. Remember, vendors cannot make any kinds of therapeutic claims, even if they're valid, as to why people consume Kratom. A vendor cannot even allow a commenter on any website or comment board that they have control over to make a therapeutic claim, even though it's true. So we at the American Kratom Association have more flexibility on that because we don't market or manufacture Kratom products. We simply advocate for consumers to have access to them. So we're looking at developing that program. It's a tricky legal issue, I'm finding. So I don't have a final answer on it, but I think that would be, maybe that would be more helpful. I am certainly willing to have this discussion with Sunshine Organics, and I pledge to do so. And see if we can get them to maybe look at more effective ways to market their product rather than drawing attention to the negative side of this. In our upcoming AK Leadership Summit, where we invite the top vendors to come in and sit down and collaborate with us, one of our panels is going to be focusing on what the future Kratom marketplace is going to be in 5 years or 10 years. And it's going to be far different than sitting in gas stations and convenience stores and in tobacco and smoke shops. It's going to be in Whole Food stores. It's going to be in the kinds of stores where it's a mainstream commercial product. And we're looking to prepare for a post-FDA ridiculous regulatory scheme into something that's mainstream. So I think that's going to be a piece of this discussion. So Marvin, thank you for raising that question. Mike asked or makes the comment that he's seeing that these bans are popping up and having a domino effect. I'm going to be meeting with our sponsors here in 2 weeks in Illinois, which is Senator Sims and the Assistant Majority Leader Marcus Evans, fabulous advocates for us, influential members of the legislature, and hopefully they'll move quickly on getting the KCPA passed. And then that will take all the brunt of this battle with the local governments. And John's right, many of these local government people were willing to accept the state responsibility with a good framework for it. Now, one of the problems at the local level is that you have these legislators or these council members that say, well, let's just ban it until the state does something. That's not a good policy because it has all kinds of downstream negative implications for people that benefit from Kratom. So we've developed a local jurisdiction KCPA. It is a modified version of the state KCPA, recognizing that the local government isn't going to have the kind of resources that a state government would have in order to regulate it, but it sets standards for age limit and product standards that cannot be sold in that particular jurisdiction if it doesn't meet the following criteria, and then they get a stop sale ban. I think that's preferable to the local bans, and we'll be publishing that as a part of our local government advocate kit so that they can promote that going forward. And Heidi makes the appropriate point that sometimes this is home cooking. These local towns have made their decision before any single person speaks, and it's already baked. The only way that we can confront that, obviously, is to get the state to take action. And after they have made that decision, to continue to provide information to those local council people so that they know that there is another option, so that they're prepared when that option arises, that we can actually take some action on it. But it is frustrating. It is beyond imagination that people would really behave in this way as public policymakers and not look at the facts and not hear from their constituents and not understand what's being done. So the Kratom can be a positive influence in people's lives. And we know that because you just have to listen to Dr. Volko at the National Institute on Drug Abuse. She's an advocate for people having access. Dr. Joie, when he rejected the FDA's second attempt to schedule Kratom, and he said to me personally, he said, I am not an advocate for Kratom, but I don't know. He said, but their science was shoddy. And then you look at his withdrawal letter, and he points out that Kratom consumers, if they don't have access to Kratom, are going to go to either the black market with illicit drugs or to far more powerful drugs that have a higher addiction profile and are potentially deadly. Why would we make that our public policy if you've got a product that's safe, that can be consumed safely, and if it's used responsibly, is not going to have the addiction level that people are concerned about, and certainly isn't going to cause a death unless it's mixed with other substances? It would be very, 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 very rare. And it's possible, I suppose, but no one's found it yet, that you could overdose on Kratom alone. So that's sort of where we are. A question is asked, don't you have to be a resident of the county or municipality when they have the hearings? There is a bias that's embedded into these local governments where they say they dismiss if you aren't part of the local crew, they're not too interested, but most of them still allow you to speak. But it's wrong for them to claim that they're relying upon not local information, because I've been in a couple of the hearings in Des Moines, Illinois. I think that's what it was called. The question was asked of the police chief, do we have any problems here? And they say, no, we don't have any problems. They're relying on either upper level state information or federal information to ban. And then they say, we don't want to hear from anybody but in our county or in our city. What kind of nonsense is that? Because what they do impacts everybody in the community. So we just have to be as respectful as we can be, try to gently push them to understand that this has implications. And if they want to be influencers, and they all claim to be that, if they want to be an influencer, then they should act responsibly and influence based on the science, not on this, knee-jerk reaction to a couple of anti-Kratom advocates to say that they should ban Kratom along the way. So that's where we are in terms of these local governments. We just need to continue the fight. Alexander asked, do we use the regulation standards of Kratom to go beyond supplement CGMP with the KCP? That's good manufacturing practices. With the KCPA, alkaloids are required to be tested and quantified to inform consumers of the strength. There are other food products that could benefit from similar regulations as coffee. While caffeine is limited for a food ingredient, natural products do not have a caffeine limit, and it is how 2 times to 3 times caffeine coffee is sold. Fully aware that opening the SHEA Act is complicated. Thank you, Alexander. Absolutely true. So, but not that it shouldn't be open, by the way. There might be a way to carve out a pathway to do it. But that's why we need the federal KCPA, because that doesn't open the SHEA, but it establishes actually a workaround on it specifically for Kratom. On the other issues, I think it's important. And Alexander's raised a very important part about the formulation and the ingredients that are in Kratom products, because we don't want to see a stimulation effect that would be counterproductive to the health of the individual, maybe create problems because we put ingredients in that have a concentration level that is not naturally occurring, or that is used in other products that may not be appropriate for their combination in a Kratom product. So I think that that's an area that we need to examine and look at. We started tinkering with some language here that talks about other psychoactive ingredients that might have that kind of synergistic effect, but it's a very difficult area to navigate, and we're still working on it. Alexander, I'm going to send you the draft 25 KCPA to get your opinion on it, because we're wrestling with that very issue as we go forward. And Alexander also points out that we got the word that the Czech Republic passed Kratom regulations for 26. Hopefully that paves the way for proper regulation throughout the European Union. I hope so too. I had the privilege with Alexander of being in the Czech Republic and participating in a forum with members of parliament and with people that were advocates there. And that really was a monumental step because it was banned. And now it's not, if you look at the law and the regulations, it's not the greatest things that you'd see because they are very restrictive, but it opens up the pathway for the European Union, which has a very difficult regulatory framework for what they call novel foods. Sweden is on the brink of banning kratom. And that's, of course, a horrible outcome that we want to keep fighting on. So thank you, Alexander, for pointing that out. And it certainly opens the door for what we're doing in an international level to try to get this done. Bradley asked, is the AK planning on reintroducing the KCPA to the Louisiana legislature in 25? We are. We've hired our lobbyists. They're in place. The recent death report obviously complicates the understanding of kratom in Louisiana and the spate of these local jurisdictions banning it or trying to ban it. So we're going to continue to work on that, and we'll welcome any assistance from the good people of Louisiana when we get down there. Lloyd asked if there's anything coming from South Dakota. There were proposals to ban kratom in South Dakota. Unfortunately, the individuals behind it didn't have a lot of integrity because he told me he wasn't going to do something and then he did exactly the opposite, but we still were able to stop it. I've had great conversations with the leadership in the legislature in South Dakota, and I think that we certainly have gotten any possibility of a ban, at least as we currently understand that leadership position, is not going to see the light of day, but we have to be vigilant for it. I would love to go into South Dakota. It's a question of resources. It's a tough thing money-wise, and so we're going to look at that, but certainly welcome any input you can have because, as you say, that kratom has helped you tremendously, and God love you for that, and we want to continue in all of that effort. Misty asked, how come FDA doesn't go after snortable bump caffeine vial that's being sold? The reality is that I think if the FDA were aware of it at the right level, they would absolutely step on these kind of products. It is a resource problem. And there's no question that the FDA is the bugaboo in many of the things, but they are an absolutely fabulous agency in terms of broadly protecting the American public from food to drugs. They get biased about certain things. And in this case, I believe, Misty, that this is purely a resource issue. But what they do is they monitor the FDA adverse event reporting system, and they look for clusters of reports of adverse events. So if they were going to get a cluster of those adverse events from the snortable bump caffeine vial that's being sold, I think they might be prompted to take action. The other way to do that is for consumers to start calling the FDA adverse event hotline and just complaining about it. And hopefully that would stimulate some action, because I have seen examples where when that is done, that the person that's answering the phone in Washington will call their local compliance regional office, and that triggers at least an investigation into what's going on. The more detail that you have about where it's being sold, how it's being sold, what the product form is, helps them to identify that. So that would be what I recommend. But there is no good solution to a lack of resources and money to an agency that craves it and wants it. They've got thousands of employees. They get billions of dollars. They just want more. And the truth is they probably can use it. Now, do they take the money that's allocated by the U.S. Congress and use it effectively? No, but they don't see it that way. And so it's a question of a lot of money filtering down into the right kind of regulatory resources. And unfortunately, that's a big challenge with the FDA. Not a lot of optimism that can be drawn from that, unfortunately. But let's try complaining about that particular product. And more importantly, let's keep pounding the FDA with a positive message. One thing that we're doing, hopefully in the next couple of days, is getting a letter out to Meta from supporters in the U.S. Congress, where they're going to tell Meta that they have no right interfering with the ability of Americans to search for jurisdictions that are proposing to regulate or ban kratom and interfere with the ability to do that, because if you search for Kratom today on Meta, you're going to see the warning comes up. It's a drug product. You should seek treatment. That needs to end, because it does interfere with our First Amendment rights, and we want to do what we can in order to stop that nonsense. And so we'll publish that letter once it gets sent. We're tinkering with some of the language. When we work with staffs up on the Hill, the authors, and we get the chance to have some input, but it doesn't mean that they listen to everything, but they're at least asking questions about why we recommend certain questions to be asked of the Meta group. And we're moving along. So I think we're close to getting that letter sent out. So that's in advance in that area going forward. I think that's all the questions we have. Thanks to everyone. I'm gonna turn it back over to Laura and John to make concluding remarks, but let me just tell every one of you how grateful we are. We don't have to agree on everything on these issues. We simply don't. But one thing we should do is be civil with one another. And one thing we should do is make sure that we're pointed in the same direction. I always use the analogy that we're in a battle here where the FDA is spreading their anti-Kratom crusade, and we're in the foxhole. And when you're in that foxhole, you want to be in there with warriors you can trust that are going to be pointing their weapons at the enemy, not at you. And so right now we have a little bit of that problem. And those individuals and groups have chosen to fight internally rather than collaborate, work together, compromise, and just agree to disagree civilly when it's necessary. But we can get there, and we're going to continue to work on it. So Laura, I'll turn it over to you first to make a concluding comment, and then we'll go to John.
Okay. Well, thanks again. It's been great to hear all this, and I look forward to hopefully maybe meeting in some of your, hopefully not in your community for any local bands. So, but if not, we're here to support you. And again, I think I encourage you to, again, in your own personal lives, normalize Kratom. I think there's such a lack of information industry-wide where people just don't understand it. And the most important thing you can do as a consumer is normalize it, explain to people what it is, and blow apart a lot of these stigmas that are happening. Whereas you have a very powerful ability to be able to educate and change a lot of minds, and and not only that, but help other people that could be searching for relief as far as pain and mental health and also addiction. So I think that's great. And again, I think just that my biggest push to you is do not be complacent. It's just too easy to sit back and say, hey, Laura will deal with it, John will deal with it, Mac will deal with it. It's not good enough. We are, it's super important that everyone takes a stand and protects this plant, or, it's a grassroots issue and it's up to us. So thanks, everyone.
John. I had a couple ideas as we were talking, and Bradley's on here, and I'm going to see Bradley tomorrow. But all these places we testified, if you can bring some family members along that can tell you how it put the family back together, how it helped their loved one, either recover, get off drugs, or whatever. Family members are strong people to have in here testifying. And more than once, Mac, people have asked, well, what does a local KCPA look like? Maybe we could put a generic talking points up on the AKA website, give some clues of these localities, because there's a lot of localities out there fighting this battle that we don't even know about. And, maybe even later put a toolkit on the website, how to do advocacy at your local level, to prevent bans and whatnot. But like Laura said, man, I'm tickled to death to be part of this. This is a movement we're in. And, I like to tell everybody, look, we're making history here. So as we move forward, let's make some good history here. And, we're strong standing together, but, divided, we're going to fall. So anyways, I can't wait till tomorrow afternoon.
There you go, down in Ouachita. So real quickly, we have a local government KCPA. We have a set of talking points that we're going to distribute here in the next week or so, and doing exactly what John just recommended. So we'll look to that. I can tell you that we are committed to fight this battle together in a unified way. And I'm very hopeful that we can bring more unity into this movement. I can tell you that that sometimes the work can get to you. And I see Heidi Sikora on. Heidi is this great advocate who's a Wisconsin resident, part-time Illinois resident. I had a dream that Heidi was yelling at me saying I had to work harder. That tells you how fixated I am on this. So, and Heidi is a tough advocate, by the way. When she screams at you, I have to act. So Heidi, I'm in my dream, I'm going to continue to fight on a little harder than I've been doing. So thank you for your great advocacy. Thanks to everyone for joining us tonight. And again, if you have any questions, just reach out to us and let's stay connected and in tune with what we're doing, because lots of opportunities coming up in this 2025 session, not only at the local level, but at the state level as well. So thanks, everyone.
That was hilarious.
Awesome. That was awesome. Wow, that was a really good one tonight.
Yes, I really enjoyed this one.
Wow, a lot to talk about. I was taking notes.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Misty, your headset is badass.
I love it.
We got to start with that because
I just love it.
We had to go right into the Zoom webinar. I mean, they were on it and ready to start, so we didn't get a chance to chat and say hi to each other. And
I mean, I am a little jealous. I'm not gonna lie.
Very cool.
I love it when the light's off though, because you can really see the colors.
Yeah, so everybody will.
Kelly says,
"That's so cool."
Okay, so when we first were getting ready to start our live stream, Misty came on like that without the spotlight, and it was so cool. I'm like, what the heck is that? That is so awesome.
I had to get a new headset because my son took his back. So, and then the one I tried to use on Saturday you were getting a lot of feedback, right?
Yeah. And at first we were, and then it was fine. But that is so cute.
I like that.
And the lights on it.
You know what came in to work with it was the microphone you gave me in DC. I had to use the adapter thing to it.
Oh, cool.
Oh, I didn't think.
Because I'm not like you nerds. I don't have a computer.
Oh, we're so nerdy. You're funny. Hey, you make it work, and look, that's all that matters. I mean, you know, you're like the queen of Kratom Advocacy on social media, and I'm sure people would
don't
be
even have a computer,
right? That's what I'm saying. Like,
Right?
people probably are surprised to know that, like, you're doing it all just
saying.
from your phone. So
I do it just from my phone. You know,
it's amazing. It really shows that there's no excuse.
Right?
Exactly.
There's no excuse.
Yeah.
There's no.
exactly what I
I'm the
was gonna
queen
say.
of figuring shit out.
Yeah.
Amen.
Meow.
Yep.
But I love tonight's webinar. I love the fact that they're going to do that bullet point thing.
Yes.
I love that part.
Yeah, I love that they want to like have talking points. That's going to help advocates so much, just to be able to like have a thing on the website with talking points and just making it easier for people to advocate, you know?
Because a lot of people don't know where to start.
They don't know what to do or what to say. Exactly. So I am grateful that when I discovered the AKA in 2019, when I first started Kratom, that they make it so easy, because I had no idea, like, how could I advocate? But then they send the email out and it says, click here and then put your name and your testimony, and it will automatically go out to whatever legislator for whatever the issue is at the moment. And they make it so easy, but we can still do more. So by them coming up with talking points and all this information they can put out for everybody, they're making it super simple. We need that.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, and I know what he's talking about with the whole infighting shit. You know, that shit's got to stop. It's got to fucking stop.
It needs to stop. And this whole thing with the GKC filing a lawsuit against the AKA and MAC.
He's throwing a temper tantrum.
I mean, it's like, people grow up, you know, we're all trying to work together and not.
Well, I mean, we're only going to move forward if we work together. That's it.
Yeah. I mean, if you don't get along with people in the community, just simply block them and just keep pushing. We all have the end goal, which is to keep Kratom safe and keep Kratom legal.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't like somebody, just fucking block them. That's it.
Yeah.
Don't post up about the drama. Just block it and move along.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Twinkle, what are your thoughts on everything?
Well, that causes a lot of infighting right there, just not being able to get along. And how are we supposed to, as advocates or supporters or anything, supposed to feel comfortable? That will chase people away. Like, what do we, you know, it's off-putting.
I'm not a part of that, divide and conquer bullshit. I'm not a part of
No.
that.
I'm part of a teamwork. Let's get it done.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Let's go.
Well, because
Do
I
it.
support somebody else's information. I mean, they had some good information that they were at least putting through, and I appreciated that because it's information. But when you start attacking other people,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because and when I first saw them, like, they're putting out some really helpful information, but then, to find out like how they're trying to cause all these problems in the community, it's not good.
And just throwing money at certain things to cause those problems. And I don't know. It's not right. If your intentions were true, then you wouldn't be. Actions speak louder than words.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've always believed that.
They could discuss everything behind the scenes, not put it out.
Right.
You put it out because you want responses from it.
Yeah.
You're looking for a response. And so the response is I have to stay at one side of it because I feel uncomfortable now.
Yeah.
And you're in California.
Huh?
Right. And I mean, could you imagine if like the vendors had to pay $121,000 just in California?
There'd be like one or two.
which is what we know is like the
end goal.
motivation behind that, to put all the others. I mean, Twinkle, you're in California. I mean, how does it make you feel that if something like that did happen, you'd have a choice of a couple of vendors to choose from?
Right. And it's going to put so many people out of business. And I don't mind paying a couple dollars more, but I don't want it to hurt people so bad that now they're adding, it's out of my
Yeah.
They'd be forced to freaking file bankruptcy.
Yeah.
And the cost would trickle down to the customer.
That's
that's
it right there. A couple dollars is one thing because it's worth the relief that I get from it. It's not worth another $100 a month. It's not worth another, $50 a week or something. I wouldn't be able to do that. Most of us wouldn't.
No.
Yeah. And Kelly says her favorite and only vendor is in California.
We're not spending the money on our plain leaf kratom that people are spending on the extracts in 7-OH. That would be a reach. That's out of, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Comes to the monetary value, people are it's crazy. If people drinking those or taking them a few times a week, that'd almost be my mortgage, or it would be my
right. I mean, facts. Yeah.
The tea is helping us. If the tea is enough, then let it stay enough.
Yeah.
I do like the whole 7-OH thing that he, there's actions behind getting it, marketed as what it is.
I love that. I mean, I love how, I watched that heart webinar thing they did recently. I don't know. I mean, I did find some of it boring and I couldn't understand half the stuff they were talking about. So I guess I just did not understand, but I love when he talked about how that heart group, their 7-OH trade group, I did not pick up on that. I mean, I was like multitasking at the time I was listening and watching that anyway, but that they made the agreement they're not going to be marketing their products as Kratom, but it's yet to be seen if they really do.
To be continued.
But at least, the AKA has been working hard to make this happen and to find, a trade
middle
group.
ground.
And work something out.
Compromise. Everybody, at the end of the day, compromise is what works.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Not everybody can agree 100%.
We have to find ways to work together.
Yeah, they have to be able to prove what their products are doing. And the people that are currently they're taking the 7-OH tablets right now, they are the human guinea pigs.
Yes.
Because there is no science behind what these 7-OH products claim.
Right.
Right. And so it was really nice when Mac was talking about, the bill that they're going to have for 2025, have the language say that it can't be called Kratom if it has 2% or more
Yeah.
with the 70H. So
I'm good with that.
yes,
Yes.
I'm good with all of this.
I'm even fine with it being 21 to purchase. And that's not just because I'm 21. I'm over 21. It'll give somebody, I would have been okay with 18.
Me too.
21. If it keeps things safer and legal and, we're fine, then that's okay. I wouldn't, straight not okay.
Yeah. And Kelly's making such a great point that, this is an uphill battle we're dealing with, as long as these things are separated with 70H. And I've seen the packaging of all of these products that have been promoted, and they all have Kratom on. They have
Super
70H,
alkaloid or
70H really big, and then they have the word Kratom on the
Yeah.
package, very, bold and stands out. And
Wait, it says right across the whole package, naturally occurring. When that's only a partial truth. That's naturally occurring from plain leaf. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, plain leaf, as our body processes it, then that tiny little bit of 70H, that part is naturally.
Yep.
The part that's made in the pill and pressed or however, that's not natural.
No.
right.
So
That's being made in.
Well, it's
with chemicals.
confusing everybody right now.
it's misleading.
It
Yeah.
is, but people are hearing us say no to 7.0 and be careful with all that. But then they go look at their Kratom package. Oh, but there's 7.0H in this, and it's like no. When you have the whole leaf powder, that's the amount that is in the plant naturally,
Right.
versus the 7.0H tablets that are synthesized. So people are just getting confused.
And made right, but as a chemical, not naturally.
Oh my, yeah.
But
I hear that shit all the time too.
Like right, the whole across the whole thing, you can't miss it. It leads somebody to believe that's buying it. Wait, this is going to be okay for me. It's natural.
Yeah. So anybody that's new to Kratom, don't be alarmed if he's, 0.01 or 2 or 3%, like that's normal.
That's right.
Yeah.
But if the package says 7.0H real big on it,
and you have to spend bukus of money.
Yeah,
for like 3 tablets.
For 3
Yeah.
tablets.
And you
No,
consuming it, then get away from it because the 7.0H is going to suck you in.
Yeah.
It's already sucked in so many people,
Well,
you guys.
yeah.
I know I do, and
It breaks my heart on the messages I'm getting, man. It's like,
it's a problem, and it
Yeah.
needs to, this. I'm glad the AKA is on this, and they're trying to do everything they can. I mean, it's a process.
did
Yeah.
you cut your hair?
Me? No.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Probably just lighting. I don't know. But he did make the point that going back to hard, we're still yet to see if they're actually going to do what they say. But he also said, but they're able to go sell all their products until they don't have it before they go like repackage
Yeah.
it. Right. So we know they're manufacturing those like crazy. So, I mean, who knows? It might take a year or two before. Well, not the rate.
He said
it's been
something about
selling.
60 days.
Not the rate
Yeah.
it's been selling. We know they're selling like
What
crazy.
the heck were you talking about, Misty? About a caffeine bump or something?
Oh, if you haven't seen those videos on the TikTok shop, there's this little vial that looks like cocaine, and it's supposed to have like 400 milligrams or something of caffeine in it. You snort it like Coke.
Oh no!
Are you serious?
Oh no!
I'm serious. Google it.
On
It's-
TikTok?
It's called Bump.
And you can get it on TikTok?
Yeah, TikTok shop.
True, Mike. Yeah.
Jeez, that's insane.
Yeah, well, I've
and then
seen. I mean,
TikTok-
they've got ads everywhere,
Yeah.
and like on their, and it's the way it's marketed is nuts.
and with TikTok, we get in trouble if we say Kratom.
Yes.
Right.
And I didn't know. I was like, oh my gosh, what are you talking about? No, I haven't seen nothing like that.
That's got to
I
be what
haven't
they
either.
mean by synthetic cocaine. You know what
That's
I'm
what I
talking
was
about?
thinking.
Why
Yeah,
would
on one of the videos I did.
caffeine? Why would you want to snort caffeine? I mean, it's
I saw their booth at the Champ Show, and I was thrown aback then.
wow.
But seeing it being advertised on TikTok like that, I'm like, and we get fucking trouble.
Yeah.
You talking about Kratom? But this dude is, selling this little vial that you can snort up your
Kelly's
fucking
there.
nose.
Kelly.
Kelly says her
Aw.
phone is listening.
You
That's
know
right.
what? That shit happened to me and my son last night.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll probably see when you go on Facebook now.
Well, I ain't doing it.
But speaking of Facebook, how exciting that Mac
Oh,
is
yeah,
like
yeah.
reaching out to Meta, which is Facebook.
Yes.
And he said they have legislators on their side. So they're putting a letter together. That was some amazing news.
Yes.
Mac always takes action. He makes sure.
I have to go find an old share that I did, or I have to go on to Misty's page and find the AKA in a share that she in order for me, because I can't get to them. I have to go and get it from other sources that were able to get it and then share it from there.
And think about the newer people that are coming to try and learn about Kratom.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that, Kelly. Taking on Meta.
Yeah, Mac attack.
Yeah.
Get him.
I'm so excited. I cannot wait to hear what happens with that, what the outcome is going to be. But if he's got like legislators on our side with this, that's an excellent way to go
It's
about
bullshit that you could type up tianeptine and you can find tianeptine. You can find kava, but here
You
they
could probably find a
Kratom.
lot of other.
Yeah, but you type in
horrible
Kratom, and not only do they not let you get to the thing, like my Kratom Stories podcast, Facebook is there. You just can't search for it.
Yep.
But not only do they not let you get to it, but then a slap in the face, they're trying to see if you need help with drug abuse.
Yeah.
Because you typed in the word Kratom.
Right.
But Kratom's not a drug.
And it's not a drug.
Makes no damn sense. Tianeptine is.
Make it make sense.
Yeah. Tianeptine is it's a prescription over in Europe.
Yeah. Oh, the world we live in.
It don't make no sense. It really don't make no sense.
But this is why it's so important for advocacy. And anybody that's watching this, whether you're here live, thank you for being here live with us. And for those watching the replay, everybody can advocate.
Don't think it won't happen in your backyard. Don't sit back and think, like Laura said, don't sit back and think Laura gonna be sitting there traveling around all these little city and county bands,
Yep.
Or John Shinholzer. I always laugh.
That was so funny. Craig says you feel like a criminal when you type Kratom in a Facebook search.
Yeah.
Totally. Like it's just weird, and Max says, this is a violation of our First Amendment rights. But then like TikTok, we get in trouble when we say the word Kratom out loud in a TikTok live. I mean, isn't that like violating our First Amendment rights too? I mean, talking about a plant that's federally legal.
Exactly.
Like it just makes no sense.
But I mean, as far as like advocating and everything, I mean, think about how many think about how Kratom has changed your life. Like think about all the people, even if it's not in your backyard at that time, think about all the people who could be benefiting like you are every single day. Like be their voice, be their voice.
Yeah,
Help
like I
them
said
out.
before, people think that I'm from Louisiana. Because I cover and I fight so hard for what's going on in Louisiana. No, I'm in Colorado, but I've just been so invested in what's been going on in Louisiana.
Right.
If I could, I would, if like I did put a question in there, like you can't on that Zoom chat, you can't talk in the chat part, but I did put a question there saying that vendors should send willing advocates to these city and county bands.
Yeah.
But he I don't know if John saw it. He said that's a great idea, but
that is a great idea. Kelly's making some funny comments. She said she went in and put tianeptine.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff came out. You put in Kratom, it sees if you need help. And then she also said, Facebook is about to send a whole team to my house with everything I just put in the search bar. Love it.
I got you.
And then you got Mike in Illinois, and he feels like a criminal drinking his Kratom tea in Orland Park and having it delivered to his mailbox. I mean, it just sucks.
It's just not. It's not right. It's not right.
So, like Mac was saying, you don't have to be a resident of wherever these proposed bans are to speak out. I mean, yes, it will be better if, if it was local, but speaking out still is worth doing, because if nobody speaks out,
Yeah.
that's worse, even if just one person does, that's better than zero. So
yeah, like with the Iowa City ban that me and Laura and Jennifer, they had that Zoom link and they allowed us to speak. Now they're going to have another hearing tomorrow night. There's going to be 3 hearings tomorrow, y'all. There's going to be
I didn't realize that.
Wichita.
yeah, where are they all at?
Wichita,
Louisiana.
Freaking
Wichita. I mean,
yeah, some shit.
The one spelled with the O. So when you see it on that
the one that Matt
petition.org.
can say, but not shitholster. That kills me.
And then there's Ponchatoula or something like that. These 2 are in Louisiana.
Yeah.
And then Iowa City is going to happen. And they're all around the same fucking time. So I don't know how we're all going to watch the 3 hearings.
Yeah, wow.
Kelly said she'd love to be able to attend one with her husband.
We're the
so he can
Tennessee
speak.
crew, Kelly.
And Kelly, I remember you did say one of the times a while back in the comments in our live stream, you did say that, having family members speak. I remember that. And I saw that you commented on that too, and Max said it. So, and Mike says, hopefully Orland SWAT doesn't take down me as I watch my mailbox this week. Wow.
I can see these my flying. Flying and grab him.
I mean, are they capable of having resources towards enforcing it like that?
That's what I'm saying, though.
I mean, it's one thing going after the shops, but that because you spoke out, now you're on their radar and they're going to be watching you. Like, they're not going to have the resources. I would still be nervous, but I mean, they're not going to have the resources to do that. But it just shows that this can just happen in anybody's community. And many times it comes out of nowhere, no warning.
Yeah.
And then
a lot of times people have no idea. I mean, people have no idea.
Right. But that was a very productive meeting tonight. Mac talked about a lot, and it was great having Laura and John there because they just bring so much to advocacy,
They're both amazing.
And it's great that they're both going to be at these tomorrow.
Well, Laura couldn't make it, so that's why Laura was on there to kind of
I thought she said she was going to be at one of them tomorrow. Oh, she was talking about the previous one.
Yeah,
right?
The one that we watched. Oh my God, it was the audio video was horrendous. It was horrific.
Yeah,
Some
we didn't get
nameplate all zoomed in. You can't hear anything but every 3 words.
Yeah, I never even got to see that one. Yeah.
Oh, it would have bugged the crap out of you with your tech ass.
Yeah, you would have been like, I'm driving to Louisiana right now. I'm fixing this shit.
But we'll try to listen to it tomorrow to see if the audio and shit is better.
Yeah, we can play it on next Saturday.
I'll try to find the Ponchatoula one. I feel like because I already testified at the Iowa City one that I probably shouldn't do it again. But,
I was wondering or contemplating myself.
What time are these at? Do we know?
Let me see. Because I know the Wichita. Yeah, whatever. The one that starts with the O. I know that starts at 5:30 Central Time. Ponchatoula, I believe, starts at 6 p.m. Central Time.
Are they all going to be live streamed?
I don't know about Ponchatoula, but I know that Iowa City, it still says that you could click the Zoom link to get on that hearing.
Are any of them set to be public though? In case we wanted to live stream, we do the AKA because we know they're okay with that. But a Zoom, I'm not comfortable going.
Well, the Iowa City one was like a website.
We had to sit and watch the whole thing.
I remember
on the Iowa City and in the Ouachita. I don't even know how to say
it. The Ouachita was like, wow.
We know about the drainage ditches now. We know about money that's being allocated to potholes.
Rusty windows.
Yeah,
man.
Rusty windows. But it takes a while till they get to the Kratom part. So Iowa City's going to be 6 p.m.
I mean, are any of these like a good candidate to live stream? I mean, are any of them like set to be live streamed like on their YouTube or a public, like somewhere where like a Zoom is like behind a wall because you got to sign up.
Yeah.
Like that.
Well,
I only do
City
AKA
was
because
like
they
on the
the
government website, not a Zoom.
I don't remember if
gotta be public.
Washita. Was that on YouTube also, or did they upload it? No, they didn't even upload
I can't
it
even
all.
keep up. There's so many of them now. I can't even keep up.
That
So I don't
audio
know.
and man, it was horrible.
Yeah, it was really bad.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if anything's available for replay, we'll for sure play it on Saturday's live stream on the Kratom Gals. But
like I said, there's 3 and they're all around the same time. So us advocates.
well, I mean, we could be mine. We could. I mean,
yeah.
We wouldn't be able to watch because what I'm thinking is like if y'all are available, we could live stream and just go to the different ones. But
true.
Then if we're watching one because they finally started, then you can't be monitoring the others. So that I don't think that would work. But it also depends on who's publicly live streaming.
So it's just gonna. Oh my God! I just thought it's gonna be hell for me to clip up everything after the fact. It already takes me hours to do it whenever I'm doing one hearing.
Oh man.
Yeah, you're gonna have a couple of days worth of work.
So thank you, Missy.
Oh, you're welcome.
Because if it weren't for you, a lot of people, well, most people wouldn't even see it.
Yeah.
I don't.
But 3 of them around the same time.
Yeah.
Man, that's. And what are the odds of that?
Right. I know.
Well,
and the day before the elections.
Yeah, day before the election. And speaking of, we've been talking about having another Kratom Gals bonus, like a movie night, because there's a documentary we've been wanting to watch together. It's called Don Harapan. It's Indonesian farmers. It's in Indonesian, but there's English subtitles, and it's an hour long. So we were gonna like do it this coming week, but then we realized the night we were picking was Tuesday, and it's like, well, it's election night. I think some people like a distraction, but I think it's just going to be so much going on and people watching the news and stuff that I don't think very many people are going to, I don't know, who knows, but we're going to do it for the following week. So a week from Tuesday, mark your calendar at 8:00 Eastern. And we're going to bring on Christopher from Christopher's Organic Botanicals because he works with those farmers. And he's going to come hang out with us, talk with us about the documentary, and then we'll play it. It'll be fun.
Nice.
It will be fun. Movie night.
Movie night's fun. How long are y'all keeping your Halloween decorations up? I know y'all love Halloween, so like y'all probably want it up year round. Huh?
Oh, girl, today I did my yard work. So today was the day I did that. So I don't know when I'm going to take that shit down.
I don't know either. I'll take it down one of these days.
I like y'all stuff that you haven't.
November's kind of like a whatever month.
Yeah, that's kind of
how
how
once
I am.
December gets here, then I'll have my December.
Now I love Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is one of my favorite holidays because it's it's just like a day to really be thankful and be with your family. It's like a chill, let's eat all day, and just chill.
Yeah.
I mean, with your family. What else?
And because of Kratom, I can cook.
That's right.
There you go.
But I usually start decorating as soon as Thanksgiving is over, so y'all see the whole my holiday.
Well, when I played the intro from our very first Kratom Gals from last December, your background was very Christmassy, and it's like, oh man, that was definitely like last holiday season.
Yeah.
And it's weird that like we're about to be back in holiday season. It's just like, whoa, that was a fast year.
I know.
And a year coming up from when we were all in DC and we got to hang out and
every Saturday. We have live streamed every Saturday.
Yeah. I think we missed one.
I know I've missed a couple.
Well, But, you know, when we first started, when I was looking back, on the YouTube with the lives, when we first started, we weren't doing them every Saturday at first. We were kind
Oh,
of
that's
doing them
right.
just kinda like whenever. We were doing Saturdays, but we were like, I think our next one was 2 or 3 weeks later, and then for a while, we were doing every other week, and then we're like and our very first one, I totally forgot to mention it when we were watching the intro. It was only, like, I think 39 minutes long. Like, we were
Oh,
doing them
that's
short.
nothing.
So what's funny is over time, we just started going longer and longer, and then like, "Oh,
Well,
let's do this every week." And look at us now. We've been doing every week for a long time,
Yeah.
most of the year, and it went from an hour to an hour and a half, then we started doing 2 hours, then we started doing, sometimes 3 hours. We're pretty much these days doing, like, 2.5 hours to 3
Yeah.
hours. It's awesome. Who
Yeah, I
knew?
think we've only stopped we didn't do it maybe 1 or 2 Saturdays because, the hurricane.
Yeah.
And I remember like, what the hell am I supposed to do? Like, I have all Saturday. Like all Saturday, I don't know what I'm supposed to do because the ones I've missed, I've been like, out of town or doing something with the family. And
Yeah.
so I'm like, I don't have anything to do.
That's just like now, since Mike is taking his health break, on
Yeah.
Wednesdays, I'm like, what the fuck do I do now?
It is kind of weird Wednesday afternoons,
Yeah.
but
So
are
I
we
just
so
started
used to going to
posting on
Twitter?
TikTok.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool. Well, it's actually kind of late. I think we should wrap up.
After the longest day of the year, man.
Oh my
It's
God,
the
I know.
longest
And-
day.
I accidentally got up at 4 something this morning because I looked at there's a tabletop clock. It didn't update.
Oh no.
Started the coffee for church. I usually get up a few hours ahead of time to get myself going and okay on that. And when I finally looked at it, it was like 4:44 a.m. and almost 6. I thought it was about a
Oh
quarter.
man.
I've
what
done that
always,
so many times.
you know what always messes me up is like after you do the daylight savings, then the next time you get in your car and it's
Yes.
and twice a year, I'm always like, I look at it and I freak out for a minute, like, what?
Yeah.
Because
It's like a split second.
because yes, for like a split second, because you're either thinking, oh my God, I'm an hour late, or oh my gosh, I'm an hour early. Wait a minute. Then you're like, wait a minute. The clock just needs to be changed. I go through that
Twinkle,
every time.
what did you make for dinner tonight? You should freaking make videos when you make your dinners.
Yeah.
I was for a while when I was making the low carb shuffles and the keto shuffles and all that. I made all that stuff by scratch. But today was beef tips on brown rice and then side of corn, just some corn. But
Delicious.
I put the beef tips over the rice.
If y'all don't know, every Thursday when Madalyn has her Spaces talk on X, freaking Twinkle has to talk about what she's gonna make for dinner.
She always makes delicious food. I'm always like, what you having tonight, Twinkle?
And it's because of Kratom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, because he works and we have to eat and you have to stay in a budget for life, so it has to be cooked.
Yeah.
And it's also a distraction for me. It makes me feel like I'm doing something.
Well, you are. You're feeding you're feeding people. That's a big deal.
Getting fed and I just space it out and pace it and it's good. I mean, it's good for me. Some days I dinner a day a week, and then it might have been chili dogs tonight or something easy, soup and sandwiches or something like that. Well, today when I got home from church, he already had the meat in the crock pot. So that was already, he had all season going.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just made the rice and I wanted to make the corn on the cob. Really like that. The lime on it. And light layer of mayonnaise on it and salt and pepper and but
the Mexican corn.
Yes.
I literally bought corn on the cob this evening.
You pooped. So but
Well, it's just awesome that because of Kratom, you're able to do all that. And when Misty was talking about our our Thursday chat over on Twitter, now called X, every Thursday afternoon at the end. And it was something that Jennifer came up with a long time ago because we've been doing that for over a year now.
Yeah.
Is at the end, we go around the room and everybody says what's their Kratom can do. And like, what are we able to do today or this week or just in general because of Kratom? And Twinkle always mentions food, which is great. And it inspires me too, because sometimes I'm like, it's really hard for me to make anything that takes time because standing is really hard for. But, what was that?
I had said I love food. I was saying it in Spanish, and the dog loves the word comida. It means food. Love food. I mean, we love, yeah. Like the TV, the doggy, te quiero, Taco Bell, te quiero.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny. Well, gals, it's been fun.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks to everybody for coming. Twinkle, I'm glad you could make it tonight.
Thank you for.
It was definitely good. Good AKA webinar tonight.
That was really, and it was so crazy how they had already like turned on Zoom.
Yeah.
They were early, so they were just kind of shooting the breeze, and it's like, oh my gosh, we gotta like go live. We weren't even going live yet.
Well, Ryan normally is the Zoom navigator.
Yeah,
so it was like Matt was it tonight.
Right. So yeah, I think it just.
You too, Kelly.
Kelly, thank you
Hi,
for
Kelly.
joining us. Thank you for everybody that joined us live. Always great seeing everybody. And if you're watching the replay, thank you for doing that. #replay, as Jennifer always says.
Do we want to do the Kratom Gals out?
We got Twinkle. Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah.
We're doing the 1, 2, 3 Kratom Gals out.
Yeah.
So I will count down to 3, and then we say Kratom Gals out.
Righty.
I'm turning my light off though because my headphones.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so freaking cool. Misty, that looks badass. You need to make some videos like that because that's cool.
Oh, it's coming.
Oh.
Okay, ladies. Thank y'all for joining us tonight, though, everybody that's watching. So 1, 2, 3.
Kratom Gals out. I did it. All right, see y'all.